Okay, my name is William Turner.
I'm Matthew Dalton.
We're students of ACC. This project was originally developed for the agribusiness program there for business planning and ag. It was originally developed with a group of four. Megan Enns and Aaron Chambers couldn't be here today. We continued on without them. They declined to continue from the end of the course in February. Okay. Our business is Central Plains Manitoba Railway. These are what we consider the key points of the presentation, which we're going to be covering. And if there are any other questions at the end, we'll be glad to take.
So for a quick overview of the problem we have. Since the legislation changed in the early 1990s, Canada's grain handling and transportation system has been continuously streamlined. Both elevator networks and railway networks have continuously pared down their operations. This has led to them having more streamlined operations and higher profits, but this higher profits has come at the cost of farmers who are faced with higher production costs and higher transportation costs. In the past 20 years, there's been over 1,500 kilometers of rail line in Manitoba alone that has been ripped out. The Glenboro subdivision, which runs from Nesbitt to Rathwell, is likely to be the next rail line that meets this fate. Our solution? Buy it and run it ourselves. Our primary focus will be shipping grain out of the production area. We will supplement our income from these two enterprises with railcar storage. We are targeting both elevator shipping and producer car shipping. This solution has led us to our company's mission statement, giving Central Manitoba grain farmers control over their grain's journey by rail from field to market to help feed the world.
Okay, so brief summary. So we're a shipper-owned short-line rail company. Our investors are going to make up the vast majority of our customers, and we're going to be based out of the old CP Glenboro subdivision. We'll be transporting grain by producer car and elevator shipping, as Matt said, and our ownership is going to consist of 50 or less investors or investor groups. We'll have 63 miles of rail line running from Nesbitt to Rathwell, and we'll have 3 staff members at startup, and we plan on serving a customer base extending along Highway 2 from Nesbitt to Rathwell, north to the Assiniboine River and approximately 50 miles south.
We're targeting to ship 15% of the immediate area's crop production the first year. This is approximately 140,000 tons. That is split almost evenly between the Patterson elevator locations on our line and producer car shipping. We are going to target storing 512 car unit trains on the westernmost portion of our line. By comparison, Can-Do Contracting alone has 12,000 cars stored in Winnipeg here. We're also going to offer our investors storage and drying options at our facility in Glenboro that we will construct.
All right, so for our potential, each of our investors, the average investor will be putting in $117,000 into this business, which is roughly the price of a small tractor, and for the average farms that we're targeting to turnover, is actually a fairly small percentage of annual expenses. In a normal crop year, we expect one of our producers to be shipping around 15 producer cars. Again, the type of farm we're targeting would be able to ship at least 20 cars worth of grain. Every car shipped results in savings of $2,200 in elevation and transportation costs, which works out to, with those 15 cars, $33,000 annually. This can give our investors an external return on equity of about 29%. For a SWOT analysis for our business, our biggest strength is that there's no other rail shipping in our area. The only option farmers have besides this line is shipping by a truck, which is far more expensive than shipping by rail line. Our biggest weakness is the fact that the rail line itself costs, we're estimating, about $6.7 million, which is a rather large capital investment. Biggest opportunity, the growing need for car storage. As the rail lines throughout North America are shrinking, the rail fleet is continually growing. This provides us a guaranteed enterprise that is separate from the local marketing and provides us some protection against local crop failure. Biggest threat will be our reliance on Class 1 rail partners. We are completely reliant on CP for delivering and receiving cars, as they will make up the majority of that part of the business.
So a very brief history on the line we intend to operate on. It was built in the mid-1880s by Canadian Pacific, and the village of Glenboro lies at pretty much dead center of the line we intend to purchase, and it was at one point a major division point for the railway. Since the 1970s, the line has been essentially grain dependent, and was offered for sale in 2011. The last train that went through there was in 2012, and since then, all the Patterson elevator locations have shipped out their grain by truck, and farmers there are faced with the no option but hauling grain to terminal elevators in far away in southern Manitoba. Over 30 years, the Manitoba rail line network has shrunk substantially. Like I said earlier, we lost over 15,000 kilometers. Highlighted or circled in the map below is the section we are looking to buy. If we do not complete this project and that is gone, you will notice there is a large gap south of the Assiniboine River in south central Manitoba. That is the only remaining east-west connecting line south of the Assiniboine River in the province.
All right. For our competitive advantage, the target market area has no other rail service. They have to truck out of the area without us. The average distance to Glenboro versus any other location, you're looking at 32 kilometers versus 78, or savings of 46 kilometers. For shipping, that works out to a savings of $9.60 a ton you are not spending for a ton of grain. With 44 tons on a Super B you'd be shipping out, that works out to quite a bit. And you've got 92 tons going onto a producer car, so even more than that. So producer cars, if you're shipping via producer cars, that's looking at a savings of $13.83 per ton from avoiding elevation fees. And that works out to a total savings of $23 per ton, or that $2,200 per car.
So for the area, our immediate area we're going to be serving, the total annual crop production is just about 1 million tons per year, of which the Patterson elevators handle about 7.5%, or 69,000 tons. Those elevators are currently at capacity, and that number we will take the shipping when we are operating. That number is not expected to increase over time. In our first year, our target is to match that 69,000 tons with producer car shipments of which is 750 cars, which equals just under 70,000 tons. Of the total service area we're in, this is 15% of the total crop, which we feel is a very reasonable market share for the area that we'll be serving. Just to give you an idea of our target market here, highlighted in green is the area we will target. Blue is other elevator options available to producers in our area. The two green markers represent the two Patterson elevator locations which we will serve.
CPRC's shipping at startup solely from our investors will be near our total capacity. Therefore, we are not focusing on advertising once the business is set up. The majority of the advertising we need to do is before we acquire full investment to purchase the line. To that end, we'll be running seminars in communities along the line, so Carberry, Cypress River, Nesbitt, to educate producers and farmers in the advantages of shipping by rail and specifically producer cars. We do have $20,000 allocated in the first year for the purpose of the seminars. And we also have $14,000 to set up small billboard signs along major crossings along our line. This will both raise awareness of the line in our target area. Anyone crossing those line is going to be in the target area, and it will also provide safety as a warning that the line is going to be operating again after standing still for several years. We also have $1,500 allocated for each radio and newspaper advertising.
Also allocated in that cost for the signs is the cost to paint and decal our trucks and locomotive. So once we have the locomotive in, we will have a 50-foot long remote rolling billboard essentially. For our enterprises, our producer car and elevator shipping, they are operationally almost identical. The difference is the elevator cars will be dropped at the two Patterson elevator locations, and they will load them and release them back to us. Producer cars will either be dropped at designated sidings along our line, or will be loaded through the facility in Glenboro we intend to build. Also, behind the scenes at the core of our business will be our rail car storage enterprise. We get paid when the cars are received. We get a fee for moving them in. We get paid a daily basis for having them sit there, and then we get paid to move them back out. This enterprise accrues a minimal expenses, and it is our most profitable by a long shot. Also offered to our investors is going to be grain drying and storage. This is only going to be a break-even enterprise. This is mainly to ensure the quality of the grain they're loading on the cars is of the best that can be in poor crop conditions.
This is something where an insect testing system would be quite helpful. Also, the main advantage of the grain drying storage for us is that it will attract producers to our facility, allowing us to load faster. This chart just gives us a brief overview of the pricing. As you can see, your price per units. Both the car and elevator shipping prices, those are the same. It's just they're differentiated by the unit. Producer cars by the car, elevators by the ton. Those prices are set by the government. The rail car storage, that price is for the average car. It varies based on whether we're storing it for 3 months or 3 years or 6 years.
We're going to have 3 full-time employees at startup, engineer and conductor, which will be working the same hours all the time, and myself as manager of the operations.
This chart just shows the operational hours for different sectors throughout the year. As you can see, moving the producer and elevator cars take up the majority of our time. Bookkeeping to order cars will also be a significant amount, as well as loading grain on producer cars and inspecting the track is required to be done every 3 days. This chart gives us our employee hours per month. As you can see, the engineer and conductor are the same as they're running the train together. This chart also shows our business's seasonal fluctuation. This chart is the operational hours per month for the sector, again showing the seasonal fluctuation.
We will operate year-round. As we've stated, that it will not be even over the course of the year.
So for our financials, as I said earlier, we've got 50 investors or investor groups. There's going to be 279 shares split between them for a value of $10,000 each. A small number of investors who are willing to put up their land as security is also required, and they will be awarded an extra 307 shares to compensate for the risk. All the shareholders will have the right to elect the board of directors and ship the grain using CPRC facilities. This is just a quick overview of source and use of funds. You see the majority is from financing, and it's mostly going towards the $6.3 million for the land and rail. These are financing loans from FCC. They've looked over our finances and would approve the loans on the basis that we have external security from guarantors. They will not accept the rail line itself as security. So these are our first year projections for revenue. As you can see, we are getting most of our revenue from the car storage, but a significant amount from producer and elevator shipping. But with the variable expenses, the amount devoted to producer and elevator car shipping versus the tiny amount for car storage, it works out to contribution income looking more like this. Now when we factor in a fixed expense allocation, most businesses allocate expenses towards the enterprise that incurs them. If we don't ship cars, we don't have business. If we don't have business, we can't store cars, which is why we've got so much allocated towards car storage. It's essentially supporting the shipping enterprises. This is just a breakdown of our expenses. The slide's a little busy, but you can see in the middle, we've got the 3 main expenses totaling about $500,000 per year, and the expenses total up to about $940,000 per year. After all those expenses, this is what our net income looks like. Far smaller numbers, the chart looks similar. It's roughly 1/3 each for the car storage, producer cars, and elevator shipping, and there is a small amount coming from the grain drying and storage that will suffice to cover any emergencies that arise in those enterprises. This is just a quick balance sheet and income summary. You can see how our gross sales increase a little bit, but as this is mostly growth in producer cars, our net income increases greatly. Our total liabilities go down as we pay off debts, which results in a 20% increase in shareholders' equity. This is our profit margin into the future. We reach estimated capacity for the car storage around 2018, 2019, which is why it starts to bottom off. And then in 2021, we hope to renegotiate the 5-year loans to allow us to pay them off faster should the business be showing favorable financials at that time. So yeah, we project the loans to be paid down within 10 years or 15 if we can't renegotiate. Once the loans are paid off, we do plan on paying dividends, but this is 10 or 15 years into the future. When possible, we're going to be maintaining at least $1 million cash on hand to cover emergencies that can result from railcar shipping. And then we hope to be a boon to the communities we serve into the future with any income we do earn.
We had a lot of help over the course of this project. I wish I had time to mention everybody, but we just got the 1-minute warning. First and foremost, Travis Long of the Boundary Trail Railway Company. He essentially walked us through everything not to do when starting up a short line. His help in this project was instrumental. After him, Jeff Affleck from Farm Credit Canada was our financing guru. He got everything to the point where we were okay to go for funding if we met their FCC requirements. And we had every town in RM. They were very helpful with information, and they were really encouraging us to continue on with this project if we can. We would thank you for watching. We'd like to open the floor to questions now.
Good plan, guys. It's good to see. Can you talk to me a little bit about the process of starting up a rail line company and what kind of regulations you have to deal with Transport Canada?
We only have 10 minutes. It is not an easy, that is not an easy thing to answer by any means. But we have to get a certificate of fitness to operate a rail line from Transport Canada once we have purchased it. We have to make sure our engineer and our conductor, or the engineer has to be certified and the conductor has to have at least industry training, if not government. Is there anything particular you would like details on?
I guess I'm really just looking to see, what certifications you need and if it's realistic that you can get them.
Oh, okay. Well, for that matter, like I said, our engineer does need to have a Transport Canada. I'm not sure what the technical term is. It is very hard to remember, but it is Transport Canada training and certification to operate a locomotive, and we do have to have a certificate of fitness to operate a rail line. And we didn't have time to mention it, but before we operate every train, at the maximum 3 days ahead of time, we have to inspect the track, and we have to keep records of all that to please Transport Canada.
That gets to the second part of my question. I didn't see you really speak a lot to the maintenance of both the track and the equipment that would be required as far as staffing. I don't think that's a 3-person job, and the costs involved as well.
Okay.
We're in a very good condition than the track that we are buying. We're in a very good position that the track we are buying is in very good condition, which is not a lot you get with most short lines. All of our repair and maintenance work would be contracted through CANDO. I believe Will has more information.
Yeah, more localized repair work, like if the locomotive breakdown, it is just a diesel engine, diesel electric locomotive, but the majority of repairs we anticipate being able to do locally. The line maintenance itself would be done by CANDO, as Matt said.
So $6.3 million to buy the line?
That is what we estimate based off the land value, the value of the land, different industry sources we found, yes.
I see. And then you'll also have to acquire a locomotive?
$250,000.
Yes, we have sourced the used GP9 from Sterling Rail Services in Montana that we can have sitting at our shop for $240,000. It was rebuilt in the 70s. It is up to modern. It is blue carded and ready to run.
Would you have considered contracting out the operation of the locomotive or leasing it, like as it were?
The original group that tried to start this project was Rails West Management, and they had what was called a road railer. It is a truck with rail running gear, and their thought was they would start 3 or 4 short lines, and they would run that one truck in between every one. The only short line they ended up getting involved with was Boundary Trails Railway, and they insisted that we do not go down that path because they got hamstrung in a lease, and they said that it just about bankrupted them not long after they were started up.
Have you spoken to CP?
CP could only release certain information to us because we're doing this for a school project and not actually. They did release everything they could tell us, and they gave us a very accurate rough number for the total line value.
Unless we approach them check in hand, they won't give us specific details.
Yes.
What about the delivery aspect, the operations of what goes on in terms of their reliability? Because if you're dependent on them for the cars and you...
That is a good question. We have to stay in their good books. The government has tried to make them deliver cars to short lines.
Are there other examples in the market of them showing good signs with other carriers? Does this exist?
There are a few examples. I believe Will has more information on that.
Yeah, like the faster a short line can do turnaround, CP wants cars turned around and returned to them as soon as possible. So the faster we can do that, the more favorable as a partner we would be. That is why we have the incentives such as the grain storage and drying to attract the producers to ship through our facility, which will allow us to load faster and have a far faster turnaround. The faster we get the turnaround, the better service we hope to get from CP.
Boundary Trails has an interchange agreement with CP that would be very similar, if not identical, to what we have. They said, if at all possible, CP has preferred train lengths, 26, 56, or 112 cars. If at all possible, try and get an entire block because they don't want to drop off 2 or 3 cars. They would rather drop a block off. If you can get that, distribute it to all your loading facilities or customers, get that filled, get that back, they're a lot more likely to see you as a favorable service partner.
I do have another question about your pricing analysis. You show $22.47 per car, and I just wanted to ask, and I'm a layman in this sense, and I didn't review your business plan, but you know, when you're moving grain, I presume there's a function of getting it in the truck, moving it, and then unloading it, and the difference between, you know, the distances is obviously very important. But does your cost savings include the difference of just shipping it, or is it
Yes.
the gas between the differences? You follow
Okay.
my logic there?
Yes, our cost savings, that 2,200 number comes from a divide between this elevator fee savings, which is about 11, and then the rest is the transportation savings. No, transportation is 600, and the rest is elevation.
Your average elevation fees are about $10 a ton, depending on your crop and your market. Those are set by the Canadian Grain Commission. We have no control. By loading with a producer car, a producer does not have to pay those fees to put that grain through an elevator. They save that $1,100 itself by loading a producer car. Yeah.
To answer what I think was your question, though, the transportation savings portion, those savings are calculated based off of the 46 kilometers that producers would not be having to travel by traveling 32 kilometers to us instead of 72 kilometers to another available elevator. Those are the averages based on different areas to other points within our area, so it would depend on producers.
We have it calculated from every remaining terminal in southwest or south central Manitoba, the difference from pretty much every major community to that terminal to us, and the difference.
What is what's the relative demand from the farmers along the line who I assume are your intended investors and your source of capital to do the acquisition, I guess, right?
That's a really good question. Until 2007, on the CN Miami subdivision, south about 15 to 20 miles, depending where you are, it varied, there was a successful, profitable short line that ran down there. And they shipped producer cars, and they shipped a lot of grain with for Delmar Commodities, a Winkler-based company here. And to give you an idea of the volume they moved, Delmar moved a grain elevator onto that line. But in 2007, when scrap steel prices were at record highs that they still have not ever gotten back to since, the owner of that line was A&K Railway Salvage and Material out of the States, and they determined it'd be more profitable to rip the line up, sell it for scrap, than it would be to run it for 15 years. So there was producer car shippers in the area before that don't have a readily accessible option if this line is gone. Does that answer your question, or would you like a little more?
You know, I'm not sure. You've yet to sort of approach the farmers, I guess, to gauge their relative interest.
There was, like I said, there was another group that tried to start this up, and they were starting to be started up under Rails West Management Consulting. Rails West put together a good business plan, except for one thing. The farmers were not in charge of the line, and they were, and that's when it fell apart when trying to find funding.
How many farmers did you say were going to have to put their farms on the line to back this?
It would be no number of farms. It would be the value of the land. It could be one field, it could be 5 fields, or depending on where you are and what the land is.
Based on decent land, we'd be looking at about a section, so most likely 4 different farmers with 4 quarter sections, so a total of 640 acres.
And have you had the opportunity to make contact with any farmers in the area and broach this subject with them?
No.
I do know one farmer that was at Cypress River. He had mentioned that they had looked at doing this before, and the interest was there if it was necessary to do this. His name is Justin DeBees. I don't know what his farm name was, but he's from Cypress River.
Have you considered a co-op form of business?
Yes.
Okay. Functionally, our business is very similar to a co-op. We were limited within the constraints of the original school assignment as to fitting in with the regulations and whether it would work for this, and with the limited time we had to prepare for this, we couldn't feasibly convert the whole business plan over. Realistically, we would ideally set this up as a co-op.
The most similar company to what we want to do is Southern Rails Cooperative in Saskatchewan, which runs between Moose Jaw and Avonlea. They are a business model that we help base this company off of. So.
Is CP willing to sell the line? I mean, they're not necessarily, auctioning it off or anything, but
By law, they have to if somebody will buy it. They have, when a railway wants to discontinue a portion of the line, they have to place it in their 3-year plan. And if a proposal comes forward to purchase it, that is, To operate the line, they have to entertain the offer by law, and if they don't, the interested party can go to the federal government, I'm not sure if it's through the Transport Canada